engagement. My name is Obi Asika. I've worked in these sectors for many years. One of my roles at the moment is Nigeria is in a national planning process to Nigeria, which is called Nigeria Agenda 50, which is driven by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group and the Federal Ministry of Budget and Planning. And for the first time in that process, which has been ongoing for years, the creative industries have become a key segment. We are called the CCHT, Creative Industries, Culture, Industries, Hospitality and Tourism, as one segment, and are actually in the national planning. We are listed as one of the 8 growth sectors for Nigeria. And the projections that we've already worked on, which we've already done projections up to 2030, we can see that this sector is going to be contributing about $100 billion a year to the Nigerian economy if Nigeria is able to find the right regulatory actions and enable the right infrastructure. Without that, even without that, that looks like the minimum figure. If we're able to do the other things, the gaps, and fill the gaps, then we're going to be much bigger. What a lot of people don't know is that the fashion industry in Nigeria leads the creative industries, looking at about $8 billion in revenues in 2021, which is enormous. Of course, Lagos is the driver of this, and Lagos is the driver of the Nigerian and West African economies. But I think the things to look at are beyond Lagos as well. Look at the garment manufacturing that you have in places like Aba and Kano. Look at the distribution out of Onitsha. Look at how we can connect the domestic markets and how you can get your products and your goods across into Nigeria. And definitely one of the things we marked is going to be the key issue of technology and convergence and the growth of e-commerce platforms, especially in the fashion, retail, and associated hair and beauty industries. All those industries look to be growing exponentially and be driven by young entrepreneurs with a lot of domestic brands being developed, but perhaps requiring more logistics, finance, backing, and distribution. With that being said and done, that's pretty much my introduction. We have an exciting panel of top-level players, both here and abroad. I'm going to be handing over to Chim Chalamera, who's the country director for the Department of International Trade in Nigeria. Chim, it's been a real pleasure to be involved working with you on this, and let's have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, Obi, and welcome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and it is a real pleasure to welcome you to the Nigerian Fashion and Beauty webinar. So as Obi said, my name is Chim Chalamera. I'm the country director for the Department of International Trade in Nigeria, based in Lagos. As you probably know, Nigeria and the UK have had long-standing historical ties, and trade between our 2 countries is increasing every year, and I really hope that this continues to be the case. So this webinar today really marks the UK's mission to progressively build more trade and investment, both in terms of partnerships, collaborations, activities, etc. And I think the creative industry, in particular fashion, is certainly an obvious area where both countries can benefit. The UK is really keen to explore areas of trade and investment and potential partnerships. And my team here in both Lagos and Abuja are here to support UK fashion and beauty companies that are considering doing business in and with Nigeria. I'm really delighted that the webinar is focused on fashion, and we also have 2 other webinars in the creative space tomorrow, one focusing on music and the other one focusing on the film and TV sectors. So we really see these webinars as a teaser or a taster to what's to come later in the year, which is hopefully COVID permitting, a trade mission from the UK to Nigeria. And you know, it's probably fair to say Nigeria is brimming with potential in a lot of areas within the creative space. And I'm glad that today we're able to sort of feature some insights from an excellent array of experts in the fashion industry. And I know that you'll all find this session really informative, and I'm hoping that following on from this, we'll have a lot of inquiries coming through to my office on that. I just want to say a particular thank you to a great team that has helped to put all this together, providing inputs, insights, contacts, and this include Afrinoli. Unfortunately, Chike isn't available, but Afrinoli, Obi Asika has been really helpful, the British Council and the Henley Business School, just to mention a few. And also would like to just thank the speakers. the value that you're adding to this event is immense, incredible. And I think for our UK companies and UK audience on the call, really understanding the fashion landscape in Nigeria is key to them making the decisions to trade or invest in Nigeria. And I'm sure that they'll really find the webinar useful. On our part, we'll continue to engage with government and the private sector to identify and support opportunities and to advocate for more conducive enabling environment if you do want to come in and invest. Now, I wouldn't be doing my team and myself justice if I didn't tell you a little bit about DIT. So as I mentioned before, we're a UK government department spread across 100 countries worldwide. In Africa, Nigeria is the biggest and priority market for the DIT. We are based in the British High Commission, so we're the commercial section of the British High Commission. And I've got a team of various sector leaders, including on the creative side, Nanklin, who's also on the call. So if you do have any areas of support, please do call upon us. Essentially, we're here to try and promote that bilateral trade and investment between our two countries. So please do get in touch. However big or small your issue, no question is small or big enough for us to handle. So please do get in touch. I really wish you all a successful webinar. I hope you get all the key sort of information. Any questions that you've ever wanted to ask about the fashion sector in Nigeria, I think we've got an excellent team of presenters and experts and practitioners in the field that would be able to answer your questions. I would now like to just hand over to our British Deputy High Commissioner, Ben Llewellyn-Jones, to give his opening remarks. Over to you, Ben.
Thanks very much indeed, Chim, and really, really good to be able to join you. I'm Ben Llewellyn-Jones. I'm the British Deputy High Commissioner here in Lagos, and delighted to be able to speak to you as what Chim said is one of 3 seminars, webinars, in fact, that we'll be hosting. I recently came to Lagos about 6-7 months ago, and I think the creatives and fashion space is one of the most exciting, and it's really nice to be able to see some new faces on the call, but also some names that I've met as well, and I think that shows the network we've created, the web that we have, and indeed our commitment to supporting those in this space. The trade relationship between Nigeria and the UK is expanding in the creative sector, and with such a large and growing fashion industry in Nigeria, it's great that we're able to give that a push today with Nigeria's large economy in this space, but also its rich cultural heritage and the very real and tangible opportunities this area offers. The cultural and creative industry in Nigeria has grown over the years, but also stood the test of time. And that's evident in its contributions to the Nigerian economy through increased job creation and export earnings. And worldwide, the fashion industry is, of course, massive, worth over $2.5 trillion US. We think that in Nigeria, in sub-Saharan Africa, the fashion market's worth about $31 billion US, with Nigeria accounting for around 15% of that, about $4.7 billion. So that's huge, that's massive. We need to unleash that potential. And Nigeria's fashion industry has risen in size. It's grown 17%, we think, since 2010. And events such as the Lagos Fashion Week and Africa Fashion Week have certainly contributed to that growth and to the exposure of those brands. Clearly, COVID-19 has challenged almost every industry really to some extent. And fashion creative sector is one example which has certainly felt that pain. So there's a lot to be done to bounce back, build back from that, and also really to recapture some of that potential and realise it. So there's no doubt the fashion industry will excel with the right partnership and level of exposure, and we're keen to make sure that happens. So today you'll hear from key players and experts in the Nigeria fashion industry. I'm not one of them, but I'll be listening and very, very keen to help facilitate and support them, and definitely see that in supporting Chim as our role. And I would strongly encourage you to seriously consider investing in this very exciting industry if you haven't already, or using this webinar as a way to partner with those who are investing and can help you further your potential and your growth. And I would really encourage you to get in touch with Chim and her excellent Department for International Trade team. And between us, we'll make a plan for you and help you to move ahead. So I'm going to stay on the call to enjoy some of it and to learn myself. and also to be available to support as we move ahead. So thanks very much to all. Thanks to Chin, and looking forward to it. Thanks. I think I'm, oh, please go ahead, Jim.
Just wondering whether, are we trying to get Niket to come on now?
Hi, Obi. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm here now. Can't see anybody though. Okay, Obi.
We can see you and we can hear you.
Okay, you can see me. Can you please switch your camera on? I freak out when I don't see anybody to talk to. I should have warned the lady before then. So I prefer to be able to see somebody and be talking to somebody. Yeah? No
problem. Can everybody switch on their camera? Anybody who's...
Well, anybody who wants to, but I know you, I can ask you to switch on your camera. So if you don't mind. And thank you for switching on your camera.
Thanks a lot for doing this as well.
Yeah, short notice, but anything for the industry. Thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of this. The fashion industry in Nigeria has huge potential, and the potential is underserved. The potential is underutilized. The potential needs a lot of support to actually show the scale of the possibilities that exist within the industry in Nigeria, and not just Nigeria. I think Nigeria is very unique in that it also influences, along with its music, fashion and music all across Africa, really, the entire continent. So my name is Adenike Ogunlesi. I'm a fashion entrepreneur. That's how I introduce myself, with investments in both a garment manufacturing facility, as well as a national children's clothing retail brand called Rough and Tumble. So off the back of that, we run two CSR initiatives. One is a children's foundation called I Share Cause I Care, which runs a Dress a Child campaign, which seeks to stitch uniforms for underserved children in underserved schools. So about 500 or 600 children we do every year with brand new uniforms, school shoes, and socks. Again, off the back of that, we run a foundation called the Betio School of Fashion, where we train women, about 100 women a year, on how to become financially independent using the skills that they learn from the school. So with one sewing machine, how you can begin to sew for people in your neighborhood, and you can begin to earn an income that gives you options and helps you become financially independent till you then go on to whatever it is you want to do if it's not in the industry. So how did this whole business, Rough and Tumble, the brand Rough and Tumble, begin? It really began with no consultants, nothing of the sort. I had a personal need, which evolved into a need that I discovered other mothers had. And so therefore I made some pajamas, put them in the boot of my car, and started this whole business out of the boot of my car, literally. So it's been bootstraps, it's been a long, hard road, but it's been done. So what are the things that enabled me to do this? I think understanding the scope and the area in which we work in, which is Nigeria. That Nigeria as a country is very unique in itself and is not like any other country. So what are the expectations that I'm going into the business with? Really, I had none. I just had three things I wanted to be able to achieve. The first one was to prove that it was possible to produce good quality products, clothing, whatever it was possible to produce those in Nigeria. The second thing was I wanted to be able to work in a business that allowed me to serve, and people came to me instead of me going to look for the business. The third thing was I was very young and I needed financial independence. So I needed something that was going to earn money and ultimately would create wealth. So from the onset, it was always a business. I always saw it as a business. So I managed my creativity in a way that allowed me to think of it as a business. So I was thinking of all the things you think about in a business, the costs, the profits, all of those things are so important. The people, now it's built on 4 pillars. It's the customer, it's the people, it's the systems, the processes, it's the finances, and what's the other one? Yes, that's it. That's the 4 things the business is now built on. So for me, it's always been about looking at it as a business. So what's the business model? Flexible, you have to be flexible, you have to be agile. You can say you want to do this, but you have to listen to the market. So for me, what did the market want? The market wanted quality, despite what everybody thinks. There is a niche in Nigeria that actually wants quality and is willing to pay for the quality. Now, we want it to be a premium brand. I don't want to be a luxury brand, and I don't want to address the bottom half of the pyramid, because I wouldn't find fulfillment in that. I probably would make a lot of money, but I wouldn't find that fulfilling. So the business model was a premium brand that would address people who wanted quality and were willing to pay for the quality because they could afford it. So that was where we wanted to operate. Now, in the beginning, we only sold the things that we produced locally. But as the business evolved and as the market sort of like evolved, I realized that it's foolhardy to try and produce everything, because there's no one factory that produces everything. You have to specialize. So we decided to specialize in boys' trousers, girls' shirts, boys' shirts, and girls' dresses. So we built capabilities, we built competencies, we built in these 3 lines, so that whenever we produced anything, if you put it against anything that is imported, you cannot tell the difference. But you would see a label inside it that says Rough and Tumble, proudly made in Nigeria. And so we evolved into a boutique that not only sold what we manufactured, but also had manufacturers that manufactured own labels for us outside of Nigeria. And that's what has helped us to be able to be successful. The business part of it, finding the right people was a huge challenge, because it didn't come with a manual. I had no role models. I had no body to ask any questions, because we're talking 25, 30 years ago. There was nobody to ask any of those questions. So I literally had to go from ground zero and just buy as many books as I could find to learn how to do visual merchandising, to learn how to lay out a store, to learn how to do window displays, to learn how to do the marketing for the brand, to learn how to engage the employees, so that you have consistency and you have continuity, so that people are not walking out. Attrition rate is not high, because that's one of the biggest problems we have here in retail in Nigeria. The attrition rate is very high, because people are thinking of it as not as a career, but as a passing through, as a place where they're passing through. So trying to build around those 4 platforms of the people, the systems and the processes that ensure we build capabilities, consistencies, and the finances, managing the money, and constantly keeping a keen eye on the customer, what the customer wants, who the customer is, where they are, how to serve them. You know, I think those are the things that have helped us sustain our business and been successful in our business. Now, the biggest challenge that we faced has always been the inconsistencies in government policy. And those inconsistencies in government policies, I found that, you know, you just have to take a deep breath, stand back, and have that agility and flexibility of mind to say, okay, so this is what we have. Okay, how do we then build on this? What can we do with this? What value can we draw with this, from this? And I find that agile and flexible mental approach to doing business in Nigeria is really the best. If you come here thinking that this is going to be like Europe, no, you're going to switch the lights on, then the lights are not going to come on, the water is not going to come out of the tap, somebody's not going to come to work for some reason, all kinds of things are going to happen. So you've got to build a team, a small team of people who understand the vision, who are clear on what the vision is, who are willing to work with you and build on this vision. Because once you build, then you then want to scale. And building and scaling are 2 totally different things. Nobody warned me about scaling a business and how difficult it would be to scale the systems in a business. You know, but we've done it. We're doing it, and we keep doing it. So I think it's ever evolving, and it's to have that mindset that says, look, You keep an eye on the customer, keep an eye on what the customer wants, but keep a firm eye on the business side of the business. You know, what I find is when I talk to a lot of young creatives, it's almost like they're living in the clouds. They have all these great ideas, but they don't understand the amount of energy and the amount of work that you need to put behind that idea. So the ideas are a dime a dozen. It's who puts energy, who puts action behind those ideas to make them a reality and can consistently do this. And I think for me, those are some of the things that we've done. We created trends. There were no trends when I got into this business 20 years ago. Everybody told me that I wasn't going to succeed 25 years ago. Everybody told me I wasn't going to succeed, that it was a business that was a seasonal business. I couldn't build a business around it throughout the year. And I just said, watch me. And what we did then was sit down and what are the things that we celebrate as a people? And so we built trends around that and built marketing around that. So instead of Valentine being only for lovers, Valentine was now, as the speak to the children, was it's a time to care and a time to share about all the other people within your community that don't have anything. So that's how we made Valentine a thing. Easter is about the beach. It's about, a lot of people want to go to the beach, want to go to the picnics. So you do that. Salah has its own. So we built all these, what we call our business cycle, where we generate marketing that gets engagement and gets people coming through our 17 retail stores all across Nigeria. We're also now online, which again, nobody tells you being online is it's a totally different kind of business. You discover that again as you go along. But again, we're doing whatever it takes, which is what you need to do in Nigeria. And that's what we're doing. So I hope this has been a bit useful and helpful to anyone who's trying to understand what we've been able to do. With the factory, with the production facility, it's been a huge challenge getting to where we are, getting the right machinery, getting the right people to train, because that's one of the biggest drawbacks in Nigeria. The training schools, the Yaba College of Tech and all these kinds of places are not equipping people for the garment manufacturing industry. They're equipping people for tailoring jobs. And tailoring jobs and garment manufacturing are two totally, completely different things. So I don't want to be in tailoring. I want to be able to make 1,000 of a pair of trousers, you know, and get it out in record time. I want to be able to make 4,000 or 10,000 or 40,000 of any one item of clothing and get it out in record time. So you need to build the systems, the processes, and to train, retrain. Actually, what we're doing now is just taking brand new people, because once somebody has been trained with a tailor's mindset, it's a problem to untrain them, for them to unlearn the way of doing things as a tailor, because they're always wanting to look for a pair of scissors to cut it into what they think it should be like, or what they think the size should look like. Whereas in the industrial setting, you're part of a line that is just consistently doing one part of the entire line to finish a product. And yes, it's been a challenge to achieve it, but we're doing it again. So I think in the challenges come the learnings, comes the growth. In all cases, is what I've seen operating in Nigeria, in the Nigerian space. So I don't know how helpful that was. Yeah.
That was wonderful.
Okay.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Nika.
I think the last thing I would like to say is be ready to build mental muscles like you never built before when you want to do business in Nigeria. Just put yourself in that frame of mind, because everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So it's now up to you to decide how you're going to respond to whatever it is that's going wrong and what you're going to focus on. Because what you choose to focus on then determines the outcomes that you're going to get. And I find this, I have to apply this, and this has been built into the sort of like culture of our business throughout the entire business. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Nika.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. I can see,
short notice. I put some of your details in the chat, and I'm sure a little bit later at the end we're going to come back to you. But please stay with us for the moderator panel, so at least you can listen in.
Okay.
I just want to introduce another special lady who is much younger, however. my friend Pepper.
Are you suggesting? What are you
No,
suggesting?
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm not suggesting anything.
Your guts will be gutters if you're not careful.
I'm on my knees. I'm on my knees. And respectfully, so Pepper is going to moderate the panel for us, you know, and she'll be introducing the panelists as well. We have a very high level panel. Pepper herself has been running her own creative hub and training people in Lagos in this space for years, and used to run the first fashion TV channel, which is when I met her, called Spice TV on DSTV many years ago. So Pepper, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning, everyone.
Hi,
Good morning, Mrs. Nika. Thank you so much, Obi, and thank you very much, DIT. So we've heard, I mean, I never personally get tired of hearing Mrs. Nika's story, and I think that it's a great segue into our panel this morning, who will take us into a deeper dive of what's happening in the Nigerian fashion industry. I would like to just go over who we have on today's panel. I'll start with Maya Tafo, because he's I think the first one that had his camera on, looking sharp as always. So Maya Tafo is a fashion designer and bespoke tailor. He is the founder and creative director of fashion brand Atafo, which specializes in bespoke menswear, women's wear, alongside bridal and evening couture. This dynamic brand is known for its stylish approach to traditional Nigerian wear, and Maya has a whole host of amazing awards and accomplishments since being in the industry for a really good number of years. Also gonna introduce Timolane Tikolo. He's a fashion retail professional involved with e-commerce, international franchising, and omni-channel retail. Timi Tikolo is also currently the head of fashion at Jumia. I would also introduce Lucy Hain. If you're here, Lucy, great to see you. Okay, great. Have to change that's perfect.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lucy. So Lucy is the international trade advisor supporting UK luxury retail exporting for the Department of International Trade. Lucy is an experienced global brand specialist with 20 years working with blue chip retail and has experience delivering global expansion across mono and multi-brand stores. Lucy has also had a lot of experience working in Iran, Pakistan, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. And Aisha, you're here? Okay, great, thanks. Hi, Aisha. So Aisha Abubakar Achonu is the founder of apparel manufacturing hub called Fashion Spaces, based in Abuja. She's also the creative director for Aisha Abubakar Luxury Designs and the co-founder of Vunik, an advisor to government bodies in the African region. And is Ade Bakare here as well? I'm not sure if I see Ade. Is Ade here? Okay. Great. I'm just gonna move on. Hopefully Ade joins us. So we've heard a lot about the fashion industry potential, the challenges. We've heard from Mrs. Nika's amazing story of building Rough and Tumble and her vision of, building the capacity of, garment manufacturing. And so I think today's panel is really important because it will definitely shed a much closer view of what's happening in the Nigerian fashion industry. And so I'm going to get right to it. So we heard from Mr. Fwenin Jones that Nigeria's fashion industry has grown 7% since 2010. And we also hear other types of statistics, like for example, McKinsey has said that the local manufacturing industry in Nigeria is expected to grow to $930 billion by 2025. So Mai and Aisha, you obviously have experience working in production, local production, be that bespoke, be that ready to wear. I would like to get your take, Mai, on what opportunities are there for the local manufacturing sector. And, what do these numbers mean to you? You're on the ground, you're, running your businesses. What do these figures mean to you and what is really happening? So I don't know if Maya, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I couldn't hear half the things you said in the introduction for some reason. Your audio, I couldn't hear at all. So I totally lost you there for some reason. My app kept rebooting.
Okay.
So I didn't hear what you said. I had my introduction and that was it.
No worries. I can ask the question again. So basically,
Yes, okay.
So we've had lots of amazing figures about the Nigerian fashion industry. So the DIT, mentioned that Nigeria's fashion industry has grown 7% since 2010. And we have other figures like McKinsey, who have stated that the industry is expected to grow by $930 billion by 2025. As a business owner, entrepreneur, you have experience working in the manufacturing capability, whether that's bespoke or whether that's in tailoring. What is your take? What do these numbers mean to you? What's really happening? What is the capacity to produce locally?
As you would know or may not know, but the other people that are online here, the fashion industry doesn't sit primarily with designers like us. Even though we're the ones on this conversation, the fashion industry is a lot bigger. And when you talk about those numbers, I don't know if those numbers cover like the open market, the Balogo or Teju show market, where fashion is so. Fashion items are sold, and they sell more volumes than we do sell. So I don't know where those numbers are coming from. They're coming from designers like us, they're coming from the general bigger fashion industry, as the case may be, which we contribute a very minute part of that, to be honest. There's also the other hand, when you talk about fashion, there's fashion where people just buy foreign labels and sell in Nigeria. Okay, and there are many boutiques or fashion houses or fashion stores, put like that, like that, and they generate more revenue than designers like us to generate. So in a nutshell, is this numbers, do they make sense? They do make sense. Do they sit in the hands of fashion designers like myself, rough and tumble? I don't think that's the case, because the turnover for people like, say, Polo or the Lux Shopper or Ash Luxury, who sell Gucci and Dolce and Gabbana designer stuff at luxury prices, they probably turn over that money more than we do, being Nigerian designers. So I don't know if there's a Nigerian brand that can compete with the kind of revenue that we generate. So the money is there definitely. Those numbers look like they're realistic because we see the fashion industry growing, but it's not driven by primarily by local fashion designers who manufacture and sell to Nigerians and to other African countries overseas too.
Thank you, Mai. Aisha, do you want to come in on this? You have a manufacturing hub in Abuja. What do these figures mean to you? What's the current situation like for you?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So just like Mai said, those figures, I'm not sure where the figures are coming from, and it might be from products that are in the market, but not necessarily designer products. So for me, I think that, yes, we could achieve those numbers if every part of the value chain, sort of focus and specialize. So textile companies should do better with production of textiles. Garment manufacturers should help out. Designers should focus on designing. Marketers should do their part. So I just think a lot of collaboration is required. A lot of, sharing, or what's the word to use? Collaboration, that's just what we need to do. Space, we sort of exchange ideas and exchange services so that at the end of the day, we just have products in numbers rather than have little orders here and there. And then the biggest problem any business can have, a brand can have, is to have orders that you cannot fulfill. So if you had an order for 40,000 pieces, like Mrs. Adenike said, how are you going to get that across in the house or behind your boys' quarters, or, you know, all of those things? So I just think that the garment manufacturing sector needs to be supported. Textiles need to be supported as well. And then the schools. So most of the people who are coming to even work in the garment manufacturing sector have been trained to be tailors, not garment manufacturers. So I think before we get excited, we need to go back to base and work with each part that contributes to the value chain. So each part needs support so that we can collectively grow. Those numbers, most of them might be from imported garments that are being resold, because I don't think Nigerian designers, and we don't have many brands like Rough and Tumble. Maybe there are 2 or 3. And then we have a lot of designers who are not making that amount of money. So we just need aggregation. Designers just need to be aggregated to also focus on their creativity, aggregate garment manufacturers to manufacture, aggregate textile people, our local textile, the special textiles now that they have. I mean, technology has changed a lot of things. So all of those contributing factors or contributing sectors in the fashion value chain need to be supported individually for us to be able to actually make these numbers, and they are all made in Nigerian products.
Thank you, Aisha. Thanks so much. So I'm hearing that, you know, we need to understand what these figures really mean and what the implications are for the Nigerian fashion industry as a whole. And I'm hearing, and I think Mrs. Nika said this as well, like it's all about specialization. So depending on where you sit on the value chain, there needs to be a clear specialization of who contributes to this growth and these figures. But also you're saying that, you know, the support is what is really needed to maximize the potential. I'm going to just jump to Timmy now. So, you know, Timmy, just speaking on specialization, your experiences in the retail sector, you've worked with a number of international brands who have come in and who are operating in Nigeria, whether it be that through franchise models or other models. I would like to know if you can share some of the international brands who are operating in Nigeria, how they are operating, be that franchising or other, and then I'll come back. But yeah, if you could start with that.
Yeah, sure. So we've got a few different models or channels of working in Nigeria. From a sort of strictly franchise perspective, obviously that's the traditional way, you know, you'd have heads of terms agreement or an exclusive distribution agreement or sales agreement, and you work with a local partner in the market, usually, you know, some of the businesses here like Smart Mark or Brandco or Persiana, someone like that handles obviously international businesses, and then you would then roll out your business plan and then expand from there. So through that, we have brands like, you know, Swatch, which I've worked on, Charles Turret, TM Lewin, Tommy Hilfiger. There's the sports brands like Nike, Adidas. There's Levi's, there's Clarks now, and there's obviously a few more in the pipeline that we're currently working on. So that's sort of the traditional franchising method we've used. But now, because of obviously what e-commerce has brought and the opportunity of e-commerce, we're now trying to create a framework that allows brands to come in online only first, at least, and use that as a cheaper alternative method of testing out the market, or at least having a presence And so, you know, which is why some of the work we're doing, you know, with Jumia or some of the other online brands is to essentially create a space where brands can be represented either in a marketplace format or an online-only format, you know, with their own website, but obviously leveraging on the logistics and the expertise of people in the local market to ensure that the brand is handled in the right manner. And obviously, then just that would open up, I think, a big opportunity for more brands who just want to speak to the Nigerian consumer, or at least have that conversation with Nigerians, but are bogged down by the costs that are associated with, you know, traditional franchising, such as like, you know, getting store spaces. Rentals are so high in Nigeria, you know, service charge, staff. You know, you wanna work around those challenges and use e-commerce, especially, I guess, since post-lockdown. You know, we've seen a lot of interest in that area, and I think that is the new focus for a lot of us that sort of work in this middle ground of bringing brands into the market.
Thank you. So that's quite interesting. So you have your traditional, you know, franchise model, and you also have this alternative model, which is basically getting these international brands to test the market through online platforms like Jumia, which is an e-commerce platform in Nigeria. So I have a question. So you talked about, you know, these local, these international brands leveraging local expertise to help them, you know, market the brand, set up, etc. Does this cut across into manufacturing as well? Do any of the brands you've worked with, or are you aware of any of these brands who have partnered with local manufacturers to produce the products that you want to sell in the Nigerian market?
Honestly, no. For all the brands I've worked with, I mean, it is possibly because the brands I tend to work with are, you know, large global brands like, you know, Swatch or Tommy Hilfiger, or, you know, even like UK primarily based brands like TM, they're very tight in the distribution and how they're in quality control and all those kind of things. I think the only market that I know that really does any sort of co-investment now is probably like the automobile industry, because they do, you know, like assembly plants here or in Ghana, and then, you know, you finish it off in market. So currently there's no one that I know, at least in sort of the realm I operate, that does that sort of co-investment, I would say.
And why would you say this is? Is it a quality control issue? Has it been done? Has it been tested? Why would you say that is?
It's probably like, you know, like Mrs. Nick spoke on earlier, probably to do with quality control, investment in sort of that part of the value chain around, you know, standardizing processes. Because I mean, a lot of these brands do work with, you know, other developing economies like Vietnam and Bangladesh and Indonesia and Thailand. So, you know, they work in emerging economies, but for some reason with Nigeria, I guess just the cost of production and the fact that we haven't actually developed that part of the value chain to the point where, you know, we're utilizing our human resources or even some of our natural resources properly. It's just, for now, not economically viable, I don't think, for some of those brands to operate there. But what is really interesting is that they understand that there's a lot of Nigerian consumers that understand and appreciate this product. So they want to appeal to the consumers, but they almost don't want to risk too much. I guess in a similar way is why maybe Twitter opened up in Ghana, not in Nigeria, you know, because, you know, they understand that the Nigerian consumers are key and they want to be present and they want to be in market, but they didn't want to physically have to deal with the challenges of being in Nigeria. And I think, you know, that is a conversation that, you know, I guess we have to explore in more detail going forward.
Thank you so much, Chimi. I do have more questions for you, but I will come back. I just want to kind of double down on this, you know, manufacturing and, you know, types of, you know, the potential of co-investment. I don't know if I can bring back Mai and Aisha. So in both of your opinions, and even Ade Bakari, great to see you on the call. I mean, you all, produce locally. Ade, you moved and set up from the UK in Nigeria. So what were some of your, why was that? Why did you decide to, bring Ade Bakari Couture to Nigeria from the UK? What have been the things that have worked really well? What were the challenges? I would love to just get you in before I go back to Maya and Aisha. You're on mute, Ade. So Ade, you're still on mute. Okay,
yes.
perfect.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning all. It's a pleasure to be here on this webinar. We set up in 1991 in London, got a loan from the Prince of Wales Trust, PYBT, to set up in 1991. So it's actually 30 years we've been in business this year. And started out doing ready-to-wear, selling to shops and boutiques across England, and then gradually moved into the couture side of things. But during the process, I also worked for the DTI, Department of Trade and Industry in the UK, as a consultant to work for manufacturers in England for them to understand the benefits of using a fashion designer, because a lot of sort of middle end manufacturers who were producing clothes in England just sort of maybe copied designs, or were not very keen on using designers and getting ideas. So the Department of Trade and Industry in the UK had an initiative whereby they got designers to work for manufacturers in England. So that was very interesting. Then coming to Nigeria was a gradual process whereby I was always invited to come and do fashion shows in Nigeria. So as a result of that, I built up the clientele and then gradually started supplying them. But through the process, I then decided to open a shop here. And incidentally, where my shop is where Nika opened one of her shops way back. It's Sandyland Arcade in Victoria Island. So we've had the branch here now for 12 years, and it's still running strong. One of the benefits I'd like to bring to this conversation is the importance of fashion design education. What I found when I set up in Nigeria was that a lot of people who've gone into fashion designing have little or no fashion training. Even if they're not able to get the educational training, it's imperative they work for organization or work under somebody, an apprentice, because fashion designing is an industry and it's a profession. In Nigeria, it's taken as something like a hobby or something to do as a pastime, which is wrong. In England, they awarded fashion design a degree status way in the 1950s. When I graduated from Salford University College in Manchester, I was actually called back to teach. And I remember when I was teaching them, there were over 600 fashion colleges in the UK. When you look at Nigeria, which has a population of almost 250 million, we don't even have up to 10 institutions that offer fashion designing as a course or as a degree. And most of the fashion courses in Nigeria are actually textile based, so they're not even concentrating on fashion design. And I think that's very important, especially if we want to take on the West and be recognized as international designers. It's imperative that our work stands out and it's distinct, so that when you look at a designer's work, you should be able to tell immediately this is the designer's signature. Coming down to manufacturing, it's still part of the process of having studied that I then realized when I set up in Nigeria, the easiest way for me was to use my patterns. Then again, I have a fashion academy in Nigeria, so we teach people fashion designing, pattern cutting, and sewing. But what I realized when a lot of designers came to me for training, especially established ones, was that they didn't understand the process of using patterns. Now, if you don't use patterns, how are you going to be able to produce en masse? It's not possible. I remember having a meeting with a bank manager, and he said, oh, are they wise in that if you give a tailor 50 shirts to make, not all of them will come out at the same size? And I said, that's because they don't use patterns. In Nigeria, we have a small operation of 4 tailors, but with those 4 tailors, we're able to produce a lot of goods to the extent that we now export from Nigeria back to England. So I still have a UK base, but a lot of the things now that we make in Nigeria are exported to England, because the tailors who have been with me, whom I've trained over the years, I mean, I've had the establishment here now for 12 years, and my staff, most of them have been with me for 10 years. So they've learned with me over the years how to use the pattern, and everything then comes out beautifully made and well cut. Because what's quality? Quality is repetitive, what you make over and over again, and then you get good at it. So now we are able to produce the clothes and export them. Initially, when I opened my shop in Nigeria, everything was imported from England. And then gradually the tailors that I used to do all the alterations said, you know, we can make some of these things. Why don't you bring the patterns? And we'll make them here in Nigeria. So even when you're talking about manufacturing on a large scale, it's still down to the basics of even the garment manufacturers must have some form of fashion education, because by then they will also understand the importance of using patterns, of using a designer.
Ade, I want to
Sorry.
interrupt. I think what
That's
you said is so important. And I think this idea of training and building the capacity is very important. And we've heard that loud and clear. I think everybody definitely agrees. And it's amazing that, you know, over decades, you were able to export to the UK because you were able to build the capacity of your team. And I don't know, Mai or Aisha, if you could just quickly touch on, in your experience, you know, what has it been like trying to export to the UK or work with any international brands? You've both been in the industry for, you know, a fair amount of time. What has been, you know, what opportunities have you been able to capitalize on when it comes to looking at the international markets? Mai, do you want to go?
I was actually trying to make the lady go first, so I'll be a proper gentleman. In terms of collaborating with other brands and international brands, I haven't done anything like that. In terms of exporting, that has been happening of late. I think that, you know, like I do only bespoke to a large extent. So when I even have things on my website, which is supposed to be e-commerce, it's almost like a pre-order. So we have the number of days to fulfill the order, send. And because we do, just leaning on what Ade said earlier, because we do have patterns for almost everything that we have done into the different sizes, it's almost easier to just reproduce it and send them. But even with that, we still have challenges in terms of, you know, this conversation of the global standardization of sizes is different from the African sizes. The typical 8 in the UK is a typical 8 for an African person, because half the time you hear Nigerian girls or African girls going out with 10, 12, or 12, 14, which is in reference to the bust and the hip. So we are bigger at the bottom. So by the time you tweak this sizing, there's also an issue that you probably would face when it comes to international shipment. I think one of the biggest issues we have is return. What's your return policy and refund policy? It is going to cost me over $100 to send it off, and going to cost me about $200 to send it back. You know, that's not interesting business for me to do again. And for me to be able to do that properly, mean that I need to have a small collection center or vendor center, whatever country it is, where they can send stuff there. And after a while, I can send the stuff back here or redistribute it if I get an order for that same thing. So I'll be paying for warehousing and admin in dollars in another country, which is a huge cost. So at this point in time, we almost run no return, no refund and policy, which is a bit tough, but that's the harsh reality. Now, if I'm doing bespoke, it's easier for me to say, let's have a measurement section with you where I can take your measurements properly, then produce your garment, which reduces, but that's not something that they are used to. So it's almost like a measurement section. It's like, okay, why do I have to do that when I can just click? Even if you have your chart there, you have garment size and body size, and they have to put together or look at it to study what works for them. I don't know how many customers on a good day even know their bust and waist measurements properly if you ask them to recall it, you know. So that's the problem with the international market. So sometimes it gets you to kind of like tweak your designs to things that are a bit more loose fitting in terms of style and aesthetics, which kind of like works for me now. So it's like, oh, this is loose fitting this, this is loose fitting that. So basically it should work for you regardless of if you're top, bottom, mix and match. So international sales has been good for me, but sometimes even in a different way. We got featured on Beyonce.com, and I think in that week alone, we got over 100 orders on our website, which we had to fulfill. So that was good, and that was the teething process of everything that I'm talking about. Another thing we kind of like this week, I'm going to talk about international sales or foreign sales. We always look at the States, Europe, and the US, and we forget Africa. You can make as much money on the continent, and there's need for what we do on the continent. I've traveled to Abidjan twice in the last 5 months, and I did generate quite good revenue in Forex. And that's because, you know, what we do here in Nigeria, many countries on the continent do not do it, and they want it. The sad thing is like logistics within the continent is really, really sad. It's terrible. You know, you can get 10 flights to the UK before you get 1 flight to Zimbabwe. Okay, you want to buy a ticket to Kenya, you get a cheaper one on Emirates, going to Dubai first, then go to Nairobi, then you can get on Kenya Airways, which leads you straight. So when they talk about all the initiatives happening with free trading, sometimes it feels like it's lip service, because when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, you are there with your goods at the airport in another country, you're going to pay the fees. You're going to pay the fees because they don't even understand what has been signed. Okay, so for me, that's my little story in terms of international sales and business and transaction. But I think it's a huge area, and we're trying to do everything every day to make it an easier process without human interference.
Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing a lot of interesting points you made there. Aisha, just to quickly go to you before I really want to hear from Lucy. What is what's happening with your business as a manufacturer? You know, have you been able to, work with international clients to produce locally? I mean, Timmy did mention that some of the brands that, they work with haven't produced, they don't produce locally. So what has your experience been with like export customers and things like this?
Okay. So for the factory, I know that we have about 7 international clients. Europe, Illinois, America, that's Illinois in America. And then in Europe, we have some Parisian clients, but most of them are Black-owned businesses, who have decided to manufacture at home. But they've been happy with the quality. And we usually have them, we source some of the fabrics for them, and then they source their hardware for those who want some of those accessories. What
kinds of products are they ordering from you? Is it, the local textiles, or is it, basics like t-shirts? What kind of products?
No, they are not local textiles. They are imported textiles still. Crepe, crepe de chine, satin, all of this other, even the cotton, most of the time are imported cotton. So they are not using local textiles, which is sad, but also there's that issue of certification. So they don't want to have any situation whereby their products don't meet standards because they don't know how the textiles were made. So that's that for the manufacturing. For my own brand, we had challenges with return policy as well, and then logistics. You know, we had to, you send suitcases of stuff over, and then you have to get someone to do admin, and then get a company to fulfill your orders. And that's a lot of money. So it wasn't working for us. We set up a UK website for all of, but it was a lot of overhead. And you know, this is something that DIT should look into, because these are the challenges that Nigerian brands would have, you know, serving the UK markets.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Lucy, it's good to see you. I guess in your experience working in emerging markets, what have been some of the best practices you've seen when helping, you know, foreign investors or international brands expand into these emerging markets?
Thank you, Pepper. I think it's really just understanding, you know, some of the challenges. What are the legal challenges, import challenges? You know, is there any financial aspects that brands need to consider? And ultimately, you know, who is the customer, and is there an appetite for that brand within the market? Are Nigerian customers looking for British brands? Are they buying British brands at the moment? And how are they buying them? Are they buying them via ASOS? So it's really understanding who the Nigerian customer is. I know that Timmy, when he came on, he mentioned a number of British brands and menswear brands and sportswear brands. So is the appetite for menswear and sportswear, or is there an appetite for beauty and women's wear? You know, I would be very interested to sort of just throw that back to some of the panel and just ask those questions.
Thank you. And can you provide any examples that you've seen in your work where there has been a kind of co-creative model, co-investment model that has worked well, especially in light of these challenges that the panelists have raised, from quality control, from you know, returns, and you know, all of the challenges they raised? Have you seen where it has worked in any of the markets you've worked in?
I think there's always a need for localization. I think localization is really important. To make sure that if a big brand is going into a market, that they're really addressing the needs of the local customer. And I think when I worked in Iran, there was a lot of work done. I worked in Iran with Debenhams, and actually Debenhams took Iranian designers into the store and actually got them to create some local ranges. And I think things like that are really helpful. Both to introduce the local customer to a brand, but also to encourage, you know, encourage manufacturing and give some local designers a break. And also some of those designers then ended up coming back to the UK. And I think in the UK now there is a massive appetite for African designers, and you can see some of the African designers breaking into the big department stores and also online. So I think that sort of cross-pollination of talent is really, really important.
Thank you. That's a really, really interesting example. I will definitely look into that. So I don't know if Timmy can come back, and yeah, let's ask this question. You know, who are the Nigerian consumer? What are they interested in? And I think Timmy can be probably a good one to start us off with, and then we can see who else would like to chime in. Is Timmy still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Great.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, Lucy definitely touched on a good point, which is that a lot of the brands we have here are skewed towards men's, and that's very representative in the malls as well. Even in the sort of unisex brands we have, like Tommy, if we find, or even Levi's, we find that the assortment is definitely skewed towards more men's than women's. I guess a large part of that is from the historicals of Nigeria as a country, in that it's such a male-dominated environment, and you know, you find that a lot of the wealth traditionally has been, you know, managed by men. So a lot of the retailers would find it to appeal to men. But I think now more and more we're seeing that obviously there is a large part of the market which is women, which is underserviced, and we see a lot of those women doing business, on ASOS, like Lucy has said, and a lot of other brands are shipping into Nigeria more and more. And so, with the onus is now to try and find a way to be dynamic enough to introduce the assortment that appeals to women in the market. I mean, for example, Mango, which is a Spanish brand, has been in the market for a few years, but they haven't had the biggest success. However, they're still present, and I think it's through sort of learning by doing that we'll get it right with regards to the sweet spot of pricing and fashionability. And I think Nigerian women is a very tricky market, just because they're very fashion forward, they're very aware of what they want, and they have a myriad of options to explore. I mean, there's a host of local tailors that can make things up, in a flash. There's a whole industry of brands that ship into market like ASOS or PLT or Boohoo or whoever else. There's also a great area of people who just rely on friends and family that travel abroad and bring things back. And then there's a massive informal market as well that deals with secondhand clothes from around the world. So for bringing in a brand that is specifically targeted to women, you have to think about price point, you have to think about seasonality and fashionability. Primarily, I think it's been easier in menswear because a lot of it is fairly staple. It's a white shirt, it's a white shirt, it's a suit, it's a suit, or it's a polo shirt. When you start going into maxi dresses or day or night dresses or more seasonal items, you really have to understand what you're doing. That being said, there are more and more brands that we're speaking to. I mean, one of the ones that we're trying to onboard is Dune into Nigeria, as Lucy knows, and Dune is largely shoes and accessories primarily for women, which is a bit of a flip on what we're used to, because we usually talk to brands that are sort of 70% men, 30 women, but this is pretty much a reverse. It's more 70 women, 30 men, and it'll be an interesting venture to see how that rolls out and plays out. But I think onto what I said earlier about using e-commerce as a safe entry strategy, it could be an interesting way for more brands to sort of test the waters with what sort of assortment works, what sort of products do people like, and then starting to use that information, that data, to drive more investment or more strategic thinking.
Thank you. So this kind of is my next question. Before you go on, I mean, there's a massive industry in terms of hair and beauty in Nigeria, be that, with local entrepreneurs or with international brands. There's MAC, there's Sephora. What kind of trends are you seeing in terms of that appetite for beauty, skincare, and hair?
Is that to me, Pepper?
It was actually to Timmy, but
sorry, I thought it was for Lucy. Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, we've seen more beauty brands definitely come into market. Like L'Occitane is here now, which was interesting when they came in. There's a lot of local players as well. I think that side of the market usually it will take a bit more time. I think it would easily follow fashion once we can crack fashion and understand how to easily make brands work in market. Beauty would easily then just flow through a similar channel, because I think, for example, using like L'Occitane as an example, they've obviously prospected the market and have seen a good opportunity. However, they're still bogged down by the challenges that traditional fashion retailers are facing, such as store sizes and rentals and staffing. And then when you put that in beauty with the price points that they're trading at, it all of a sudden makes it a bit more difficult. But again, if we're able to simplify this model, whether it's e-commerce or not, that allows that easy flow, easy testing of the waters to happen, I can easily imagine that that market will ramp up. Because again, it's understanding on what I said earlier about the female consumers. They're very, very fashion fashion forward, very fashion conscious. You know, Nigerian women, they care about their appearance a lot, and obviously they know, you know, everyone's got a skincare routine, and whether that is through right now being serviced by third-party vendors, such as some people on Instagram that they will body shop product, or, you know, informal sort of distributors. We know that these people exist, or we need to figure out is a way that is, I would say, cost efficient enough for these brands to exist and serve the niche that is still in Nigeria now, whilst obviously trying to scale it up over time.
Thank you. I'm just curious to know with if any of the international brands that do come in, especially menswear, are there any local players that they would probably size up as, you know, potential competition? Because, you know, when you have brands like mine, and there's so many others, David Wedge, you know, the list goes on. Are there any kind of players that would be, okay, this is a brand that we could either potentially collaborate with, or this is actually, you know, competition for us?
Well, I think currently, to be very honest with you, when we do sort of feasibility studies or market assessments before onboarding any new brands, the businesses that usually stick out towards the top of that from the competitive landscape locally would be sort of multi-brand vendors, to be honest with you, so other retailers that deal with loads of international brands. But it can be a locally owned business, but housing many international brands. I think largely from a turnover perspective and from an operational perspective, I think there are not many local players that are able to obviously compete with some of these brands that we're talking about at that level. But again, like you touched on this, David Wedge, there's a few other local players that are obviously very active in the realm they play. And like mine, for example, he's a bespoke business, so you know he's very active in that realm. But if take Levi's, for example, or Tommy Hilfiger, for example, who's opening up a shop here, we wouldn't be looking at the size of my customers because that's very niche and very specific. We'll be looking at sort of a broader audience and looking at the bigger picture as to where these people go, and you know, we'll be looking at indices sort of maybe around people that shop online or people that shop with TM Lewin or Charles Stewart or Hugo Boss, you know, and trying to understand the consumers from that side, or Nike or whatever, rather than sort of starting really niche and then honing on a niche, because I think it's just too, yeah, for some of them it's just too small to look at.
Great, thank you so much. Conscious that we have 5 minutes before we take any questions, but I guess I would like to ask, you know, Aisha or Mai or Ade, in your own perspectives, do you think that you know, Nigerian fashion creatives can or have the capacity to co-create and produce you know, collections for the UK market? I know education is a really big opportunity to increase the skill sets and the quality control, but from what you've experienced and from how you've run your business, do you think that there is that opportunity where Nigerian fashion creatives, be that manufacturers or, you know, be that the hubs that you find in Aba or Onitsha, do they have the capacity to produce? Aisha, do you want to go? Do you want to take that?
Okay, I'll go this time. I think if we have the likes of Ade Bakari, who is Nigerian, Maya Tafo, I think it's a no-brainer, really. We have the capacity in terms of creativity, and if adequately supported, the garment manufacturing sector and the textile sector can do very well as well. I think there is a huge opportunity here, and it's just for us to take a step back and really reevaluate things and let each contributing sector focus on their specialty, like I said earlier. Let the textile people do their thing, let designers do their thing, garment manufacturers do their thing, there has to be a platform for selling, distribution, and retail. So if all of these components can focus and then come together to collaborate, I don't think it's for me, it's doable.
Thank you. Ade or Mai, do you want to add your perspectives?
I just quickly say here, I think that when it comes to the way we look at this situation here, it's always a bit different. Not a lot of international designers and manufacturers. And I think that we saddle ourselves with responsibilities of being manufacturers as well as designers because of our geography, which I honestly think is wrong. And again, not just because of geography, but also the fact that you do not have reliable manufacturing hubs to outsource your things to. I don't think there's any business, no manufacturing business in Nigeria that outsource my tailored suits to, and they'll make it better than me. That's period. Okay, so I think that's where the problem is. So we end up trying to be manufacturers, and when you look at designers or look at fashion brands that have made it very well in this country, many of them do not manufacture here. So it shows you, like we talked about David Wedge, and when Tiki was talking, he spoke about when international brands come and look at competition, they wouldn't look at me because my size is small, but they'll look at David Wedge, okay? Because he's doing pure retail the way it is done globally and how it is done. But now we try to manufacture here. So, and again, we do not manufacture to the standard that it is, I mean, for lack of a better word, international. So with many of the so-called big designers, when you look at their garments, there's still some flaws in it. And I don't believe that that's the African thing, to be honest. Okay, it's kind of like using a nice white handkerchief to cover mediocrity. Okay, so I think that's where the problem is. So if we have to fix this problem and fix it, even with us leading the charge, it has to be a case whereby you need to bring the manufacturing or the labor force up to the point whereby they can manufacture seamlessly like it is done overseas. And that kind of thing is beyond I doing it or Aisha doing it. Okay, it means that you have to have a proper system, a proper process. You have to have the proper machines to do what they have to do. You have to have something that's basic as electricity, which we do not have. At the current time, the cost for electricity for my diesel generator and the one from the power holding company is at par when it comes to consumption. And to realize that I have to pay taxes whichever way, which is also enormous on that, you've actually shrunk my margins to that small. Okay, so that's the reality of it all. We're still cutting things with bare scissors, and people are using laser cutting machines to cut the stuff. Now, if you want to go as mass as that, you have to fix with this reality. I bought a boy-roll machine that cost me, God knows, it was 7.7 million naira. How many people can afford that if it's not working full-time in a factory? Okay, so I think that's it. Now, who's going to be the factory guy to say, I'm going to do the manufacturing, I'm going to scale up my skill set to it? Remember what Nikki said initially. What a business in Nigeria is a bit different. What we have is human capacity, but we have unskilled human capacity. It is a last resort because they just want money to do something, not because they're passionate about it or are skilled in it. So even with ABBA, if they have the right support, they would do it properly. But a man would look at it and say, if I do it properly, how much more will I earn when I do it this way and already earn a living? And the difference at the end of the day will be a certain amount of money, and I choose not to improve myself for that amount of money. So it's, and I hate to say this word, but the word is the government has to be in place. And you know that when we say the government, that doesn't exist in the structure. So literally almost stands in the hands of individuals to try to move things forward, which is very, very difficult and challenging. And with the numbers that have been shared today, if you ask anyone that's meant to be an investor to invest, By the time you look at 4 or 5 other industries, you would move there rather than move into fashion. And you do fashion the way it has always happened, which is literally get your things from overseas, beat the border control, and get it in here, sell it, and retire your money. It's a lot easier, it's a lot safer for you to do it that way. Okay, so the only reason why you don't have a lot of big designer brands owning space here is because of security reasons. The security reasons occur, they will come here, and I'll be out of business, to be honest. So it's very important that we look at all these things and all ramifications. Suit Supply tried to come to Nigeria. They tried to do pop-ups, tried to do everything. They couldn't crack the market based on the fact of security. When you look at the chain, it looks like they're not going to make any money, but they're in South Africa. They're in the UK, by Sabi Road, you have Suit Supply. You have them in the US, they're all around you, but they couldn't crack it in Nigeria. Okay, so it's important that we have our unique things, but we also have to understand that. So are we going to be us 100%? Are we going to try to mirror the standards overseas? Are we trying to create a new way of doing it by ourselves? And where's the support and the funding going to come from for this huge experiment, which I call it at the end of the day?
Thank you so much, Mai. Very, very, candid response that you gave there. Thank you so much in giving us that reflection and your perspective. I just want to round up with Lucy, just because I'm conscious of time, and hopefully there are any questions, and please feel free to put them in the chat for any of the panelists. So Lucy, if everything that you've heard, today, this morning, and going on your experience, what kinds of things are you seeing as opportunities for investment or for international companies coming into Nigeria? What are the things that you have, any reflections that you might have, and any kind of direction that investors should be looking at based on this conversation this morning?
Thank you. I think without a doubt there is an appetite for international brands to come into the market. It's a very attractive market. It's wealthy. There's a big population. A number of big international brands are very interested in the Nigerian market. But I think going back to what May has highlighted, some of the security issues, the infrastructure issues, I think these are things that we've got to consider. But I think also there is opportunity as well for Nigerian designers to come to the UK and take advantage of some of the new platforms that are opening. I work with an e-commerce platform called Kojo Market, which has a number of African brands on it. And I think you've got e-commerce platforms like that. And I think coming to the UK trade shows like Pure, speaking to the British Fashion Council, and UK Fashion and Textiles, I think there's definitely a reinforced and new appetite for African and for Nigerian brands. I think there's opportunity there. So I think both ways. Definitely when I came into the fashion and e-commerce team in London, there is a massive interest in the Nigerian market. I think it's just how to access it, who are the partners, and how to best reach the African consumer, whether that's via franchise or via Jumia, which Tim has also mentioned.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Again, really interesting examples of how this opportunity can be capitalized both ways. I just wanted to know if there's any questions now for the panelists, for Mai, Aisha, Timmy, Lucy, or Adebekare. We do have about 5 minutes, I believe. I'm just going through the chat, really interesting insights that this conversation has kicked off. I think there was a question for Aisha, if she used tech packs. Which, okay, I think you've answered that question.
Yes, we use tech packs.
Okay.
Clients provide tech packs, or we provide them for you.
Okay, thank you, Aisha. Does anybody want to just answer, just share a question while we're still on?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. And I've listened to, to all the panelists, and I appreciate everybody's point of view. At this time, what I would like to highlight is that we have to be very careful of the narrative and the belief of what is possible for us in the industry and what is not possible for us in Nigeria. So yes, we have a lot of challenges, but I don't believe that these challenges are not the same sort of challenges that other countries faced when they wanted to do this. Bangladesh, for example, doesn't really manufacture fabric, but Bangladesh is a garment manufacturing destination, and that's what they set out to achieve. And I feel that Nigeria is very well positioned to be a hub for the whole of West Africa, and indeed even bigger than West Africa, for the world if we want to. Now, I've never had the pleasure of meeting Aisha, but I'm happy to visit you and meet up with you in Abuja, because I'm so happy to hear of people who are setting up manufacturing units that can do exactly what Mai says. The designer, focus on your expertise. Let somebody else do your manufacturing. Mai, we can do the manufacturing. We cannot manufacture your suits, but there's a lot of other things that we can manufacture. Yeah, we can't do your suits. Your suits are bespoke, they're Savile Row, they're what have you. We don't have that technical expertise, but there's a lot of other things that we can manufacture. We can manufacture dresses, we can manufacture pants, we can manufacture shirts, we can do all sorts of things, blouses, skirts. Yes, there's the challenge of all the bits and pieces that you use, that you need to manufacture those things. They all have to come from outside of Nigeria. But we also have the possibility of putting them all together here. So we have the machine that does the patterns, that drafts the patterns using a computer. I keep forgetting what it's called. So forgive me if I don't have all the technical names and bits and pieces, but we have those machines. We're being trained right now by a Chinese company on how to use it. So people are investing in this industry because we want the design. I believe that designers should focus on growing their brand and marketing their brands. And I want to go into Nigerian malls and see my Atafo store there, the same way I would see a Swatch or Tommy or whatever. I want to go into a Nigerian mall and be able to see that, and I think that is closer than we actually think. Yes, we'll have chat. Yes, it is, mine. It is.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it is. So the narrative here should be, how do we scale some of the manufacturing hubs that we've started? What are the technical expertise and technical capabilities that we need to be able to manufacture for you, to be able to manufacture for Ade, for example? I didn't even know that Ade does classes and teaches pattern making. I'm going to get him to come in to do some work with my guys. To teach. Well, you always have to upscale, you always have to train, you always have to train the people and help them see. As I said earlier, we need to change the mindset from tailoring to industrial garment manufacturing, where we're doing 10,000, 1,000, 500, 600. That's where we want to be. Is it easy to do? Well, I got a big taste of it when we made over 1 million masks. I've never made 1 million of anything in my life, but we made over 1 million masks. Why? Because we had gotten technical expertise before the pandemic who had taken us through the entire process on how to mass produce. And so we were doing them at a rate of 100,000 units a week. And even I couldn't believe that it was possible. But there's so many things that are possible for us. And I think we have to be careful of our narrative and embrace this. Try us. We use tech packs. Yes, we do. We know how to use tech packs. We know how to use all those things because we've gone out of our way to learn, to position, to be able to serve the industry, serve the Nigerian designers so that they can grow their brands. Because as you quite rightly said, Tommy Hilfiger doesn't own any factories making anything. Somebody else does that because it's not their core business. Their core business is the brand and marketing the brand and scaling the brand and making sure the brand is global. So
thank you so
that's
much.
what we need to do here too.
Thank you so much for those last words.
Sorry, I could go on and on, as you can see.
I know it's no, and we would love to listen to you. And believe me, I think Mrs. Nika has said it all. There are opportunities. Where are the specializations? Where are the opportunities for growth? Where are the opportunities to scale? Where are the opportunities for investors to work hand in hand with Nigerian companies, Nigerian creatives, to produce the quality and the standard of garments that they're looking for, be that for the local market or for UK distribution. At this point, if nobody has any other questions or thoughts, I'm going to hand back over to Obi, but thank you so much to the amazing panel. It was really amazing to speak to you and gain your insights and your perspectives. And thank you also for being very candid in your responses today. So over to you, Obi.
Wow, thank you so much. Incredible panel, guys. Pepper, thanks so much for running that so smoothly and handling my inbox messages so smoothly as well. I mean, it's funny, I was trying to sum up the whole conversation, but I think Nika just did it all. You know, I think narrative is key. My big takeouts are the separation between garment manufacturing and fashion. I know we didn't talk about hair and beauty so much. I was speechless to find out that Nigerian men were leading women in anything to do with fashion, because I mean, that sounds incredible to me, but you know, we learn every day. But I think the most important thing is probably the last word. Collaboration is key. I think there are two-way opportunities here for Nigerian designers to globalize, working with people like Lucy, and the ability to engage some of these global platforms and to be spotlighted and get into some of these platforms. And then of course, for anybody from the UK looking to come into Nigeria, looking at Nigeria in terms of, like I said, Lagos, of course, beyond Lagos, as Nika said, with the manufacturing hubs, we have Kano, Ibadan, Port Harcourt, Aba, Onitsha, and really looking at these places as a springboard into West Africa as well. Because as something Mai said, you know, the niche designers are probably less than 5% of the entire size of the Nigerian fashion market and industry in terms of the scope and scale of what's happening in Nigeria. But yeah, this was a wonderful session. Thank you so much, everybody. I just want to hand over back to Chim Chalamera, our host. And Chim, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Obi. I think you're right. Mrs. Nike said it all. And just like you, I think I'm equally surprised about the statistics around men's fashion overtaking women. So I think we need to do something in that area. I think just on behalf of DIT and the UK government, I just want to thank all the speakers for your various contributions. I think it's been really insightful. I've certainly learned a lot. And I'm really excited to sort of see what comes out of this. I mentioned at the beginning that this is just the first step of what we are hoping to have later on in the year, which will be a fashion and beauty trade mission from the UK to Nigeria. And, you know, we would really love to see that collaboration happening. We'd really love to see Nigeria set up as the manufacturing hub for West Africa, or even the whole of Africa. And, you know, it's been absolutely great and insightful to just hear from our excellent panel, from our case study or key sort of presenter on the from Rough and Tumble, Mrs. Nike. I think it's just been absolutely insightful, and I really hope that you've all gained something from it. We did record the session, so if anyone wants to watch it back, I think we could probably work through the technicalities and send you a link in case you missed anything. And yeah, I just really want to thank Obi in particular for bringing together a large part of the panel. I think certainly from our end, myself being new to Lagos and Nigeria, I think it's just been really great to be able to call upon you, Obi, for your expertise and your connections. So thank you very much for that. And I think that's all I really wanted to say. I do hope to hear from you guys. Nanklin, who leads our creative sector, is also on the call, and I see that she's shared her details. So please do feel free to reach out to us and continue the conversation. So thank you all very much and have a lovely rest of the day. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
you. Bye. Bye.
He did not pay 3,000 of them. They pay salary. In fact, in the local governments, once he paid 3 days ago. These are the facts, and those workers are here to confirm. So, comrades, the students are here.